Right now, like as you're listening to my voice, there is a server sitting in some heavily air-conditioned warehouse.
Probably in the middle of a desert somewhere.
Right, exactly, in a desert.
Hmm.
And it is perfectly preserving a terrible joke you made back in 2014.
Oh, yeah. A joke that, frankly, if someone printed it out and handed it to your boss today, you'd be fired by lunch.
You'd be packing up your desk. And the crazy part is, right next to that joke, on that exact same server, is a record of, well, exactly what you searched for at 2 a.m. last Thursday.
When you were staring at the ceiling and couldn't sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And, right next to that, there's a predictive model mapping out exactly where you're going to drive tomorrow morning.
Based on what, the last 4 years of your GPSing?
Literally the last 4 years. So today, we are taking a massive magnifying glass to your digital footprint. Welcome to the deep dive.
I'm really excited for this
Me
one.
too. Because, every single place you go online, every link you hover over, every seemingly harmless quiz you take, it leaves an invisible trail.
It does. A very permanent trail.
Right. And our mission for this deep dive is to basically tear that trail apart. We're going to look at exactly what makes up this online identity, the mechanics of, who is actually looking at it.
And the real world damage it can cause, that's the part that really shocks people.
Absolutely. The tangible damage.
Yes.
And then don't worry, we are going to walk you through a comprehensive, step-by-step cleanup operation to fix it based on all our source notes today.
Which is so needed because this is arguably the most defining characteristic of modern life. I mean, we all operate under this incredibly persistent illusion that our digital actions are, well, ephemeral.
Like they just vanish.
Right. We think that because we close a tab or, because an app refreshes, the action just ceases to exist.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. But your digital footprint is the cumulative indestructible sum of literally everything you do.
So there's this analogy that gets thrown around a lot when people talk about this, the whole idea of walking in mud. You step in the mud, you leave footprints behind.
Yeah. I hear that one all the time.
Right. And it makes sense on like a superficial level. You interact with the internet, you leave data footprints. But honestly, I feel like that analogy gives people a totally false sense of security.
Oh, it absolutely does. Because it completely ignores the fundamental physics of the environment.
Wait, how so?
Well, think about it. When you step in actual mud, you leave a physical depression in the earth, right? But then the physical world takes over. The sun bakes the mud, or the wind blows dust over it.
Or just rains.
Exactly. The rain comes and washes it away entirely. The earth resets. Nature has this built-in deletion mechanism.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the internet definitely does not have that.
No, not at all. The internet is a closed system, and it's built primarily for redundancy and preservation.
Right. The data trails you leave in this digital mud, they aren't exposed to the weather. They're stored in, highly redundant databases.
Backed up to secondary servers.
Yeah, copied into data lakes,
Yeah.
mirrored across global content delivery networks. By default, they are literally designed to persist indefinitely.
Which is precisely why understanding the anatomy of this trail is so critical for everyone listening. We have to look at the mechanics of how it's preserved.
Okay, let's unpack this. I think we need to start with the data that we are willingly, or at least mistakenly, handing over ourselves. We call this active data.
The stuff you're actively doing.
Right. You're actively typing, you're
Mhm.
actively clicking, and, the ultimate ground zero for active data is the modern confessional booth, which is your Google search history.
Oh, it really is a confessional, isn't it?
It totally is.
But it's a confessional where the priest is taking meticulous index notes and storing them in a searchable database.
That is a terrifying way to put it, but it's true. Think about the things you type into that little white bar. People type things they wouldn't tell their spouses.
Or their doctors.
Yeah, they're doctors, they're lawyers. You get a weird pain in your side and you immediately search for symptoms.
Yep. Or you have a moment of moral weakness and you search for something you shouldn't.
Exactly. The source material has some classic examples of these permanent searches, and they're so relatable. Things like how to hack Wi-Fi or cheap drugs online. And this last one is truly my favorite because the panic is just so universal. How to lie in interview.
Oh, man. That last one perfectly encapsulates the human condition, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's just this momentary lapse of confidence, a quick burst of anxiety translated instantly into a query string.
But the danger here is that it feels completely private in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you sit there in the glow of your screen, you type in your deepest insecurity or your stupidest
You
question,
hit enter.
you hit enter, you skim the results, and then you close the window. And that psychological feedback loop tells you the interaction is over.
You think the secret is safe between you and the machine.
Right. Like burning a private diary every night. Yeah. But the reality is that the machine is essentially keeping a photocopy of that interaction forever.
And let's break down the mechanics of that photocopy, because it's not just one single entity logging this.
It's not.
No, the technical reality is that this data is systematically tracked and logged at multiple intersecting layers of network architecture.
Okay, walk me through that.
Well, first, you have the account level. So if you're signed into a Google account or a Microsoft account, that query is deterministically tied to your specific verified profile.
But wait, what if I'm not signed in? Like, what if I use a private window, or I just make sure I'm totally logged out?
That is exactly what brings us to the second layer, which is the browser and device level. Even if you are logged out, your browser leaves a fingerprint.
Like cookies.
Not just cookies. We are talking about deep browser fingerprinting techniques. They look at your screen resolution, your installed fonts, your operating system version.
Rate my fonts.
Yes, your fonts, your hardware configuration, all these variables combine to create a highly unique identifier. So even without an account, the search engine still knows that this specific, unique device generated this specific query.
That is wild. And it goes even deeper than the browser, right? Like the actual infrastructure of the internet is watching.
Exactly. We have to talk about the ISP level, your internet service provider.
Like Comcast or whoever.
Right. They are the gateway. Before your search for how to lie in interview even reaches the search engine servers, it has to pass through your ISP's routing infrastructure.
Because they're the ones actually connecting me.
Yes. They handle the DNS requests, they route the packets of data. This means they have the technical capability and frequently the commercial incentive to log that traffic.
So it's basically a multi-layered net catching the query before the search engine even formulates the answer.
Precisely.
Okay, let me push back on this a bit, because I know exactly what someone listening is thinking right now.
What's that?
They're thinking, well, I'm proactive. I go into my browser settings every single week. I hit the history tab, and I click clear browsing data.
Yes.
I check the boxes for cookies, cache, and history. I hit delete. Doesn't that sever the connection? Doesn't that burn the diary?
This is honestly one of the most dangerous misconceptions in digital literacy. You are describing the illusion of deletion.
The illusion. Okay, explain that.
When you hit that delete button in your browser, what actually happens? The user interface updates, the text disappears from your screen.
Right, it looks gone.
It gives you a profound psychological sense of closure. But you have only deleted the local shortcut on your specific hard drive.
So it's like sweeping dirt under the rug, but the dirt is still inside the house.
Or rather, the dirt is in a house halfway across the country.
Oh, man.
Precisely. The data itself resides on external servers. It resides in backup tapes, in aggregated datasets used for machine learning models, and in the depths of your ISP's routing logs.
So hitting my delete key doesn't touch any of that.
Not at all. The command you send to delete your local history does not travel down the entire chain of custody to scrub every single server farm that interacted with your query. The internet is fundamentally resistant to true deletion.
Because of that redundancy we talked about.
Exactly. If one server goes down, another has the data.
So hitting delete just makes us feel better while the data lives on. That is heavy. But, you know, search history is just the stuff we quietly ask the internet.
Right.
What about the stuff we actively broadcast to the internet? Because the second massive pillar of our active data trail is old social media posts. The ghosts of past cringe.
Social media is uniquely potent because we are actively constructing a narrative of our lives, but we usually do it without considering the longevity of that narrative.
Yeah, we treat it like a casual conversation at a bar, forgetting that every single word is being perfectly transcribed.
And kept forever.
And the artifacts we leave behind are staggering. Like, we leave 5-year-old cringe posts, you know, those highly emotional, overly dramatic statuses you posted when you thought the world was ending over, like a minor inconvenience.
Oh, we all have those.
We leave offensive jokes that seemed edgy at the time. We leave heated political rants and deeply personal drama with an ex-partner.
It's just a volatile archive of emotional immaturity and heat-of-the-moment reactions.
It is. And I want to pause really quickly on the political rants aspect here.
That's an important one to clarify.
Yeah. Because the world is incredibly polarized right now, I want to be explicitly clear with you, the listener. We aren't taking a side here. Left-wing, right-wing, centrist, it absolutely does not matter for our purposes today.
We aren't endorsing any ideology whatsoever.
Exactly. The point the source material is making is that the underlying infrastructure of the internet doesn't care about the content of your political affiliation.
It really doesn't.
It only cares that you posted a highly charged, potentially alienating rant 5 years ago, and it has preserved that string of text perfectly. The server is completely impartial to the politics. It's just hoarding the data.
That is a vital distinction to make. The data infrastructure is ideologically agnostic. It is simply a preservation engine.
Right.
And what makes this so incredibly disruptive is the psychological disconnect between human memory and server memory.
Wait, expand on that, because I know for a fact I don't remember what I posted 5 years ago.
Well, think about the biological mechanics of human memory. It's inherently flawed, it's malleable, and it's subject to severe decay over time.
Yeah, we forget things.
Right. We experience a moment of intense interpersonal drama. We get angry, we go on social media, and we post something deeply passive-aggressive or maybe just overtly hostile.
Guilty.
In that specific moment, the emotion is entirely consuming. But then the biological clock ticks. Days pass. Years pass. We heal. Our perspectives shift. We mature.
And we literally forget the intensity of that drama.
Exactly. Eventually, our brain wipes the memory of the post entirely to make room for new experiences.
Yeah, if you asked me what I was furious about on a random Tuesday in October of 2019, I would have absolutely no idea. It's gone.
Gone for you. But server memory does not experience biological decay. A solid-state drive sitting in a data center does not possess emotional intelligence.
It doesn't forgive.
It does not have the capacity for forgiveness or personal growth. It records that drama with the exact same binary fidelity on day 1 as it does on day 2000. You forget the drama you caused half a decade ago, but the database doesn't. To the internet, that 5-year-old angry rant is as fresh and present as a post you made 10 seconds ago. It collapses time completely.
It collapses time. That is such a vivid way to frame it.
Yeah.
We're essentially living alongside every past iteration of ourselves simultaneously, whether we relate to those past versions or not.
Exactly.
Okay, so that covers the active data. The searches we type into the void, the emotional baggage we post on our timelines, these are things we actively do.
The voluntary stuff.
Right. But honestly, as terrifying as that is, we need to transition to the stuff that happens behind our backs.
Yes. The hidden ecosystem.
The data that is harvested without us ever pressing a button. Let's look at the passive data.
This is where the landscape shifts from voluntary submission to systematic extraction. You are no longer consciously contributing to the trail. The trail is being vacuumed off of you as you simply exist in the digital space.
And let's not mince words here. The source material explicitly states that the entities responsible for this are considered the absolute scariest part of our digital footprint.
Without a doubt.
We are talking about data brokers. Now, I think everyone has heard the term data broker thrown around in like privacy documentaries or news articles.
It's a buzzword.
Yeah, but we need to break down exactly what they are and the sheer volume of what they collect. Because they aren't just looking at your tweets.
Not at all. Data brokers are the invisible wholesalers of the digital economy. And the commodity they are trading, refining, and selling is human behavior.
Our behavior.
Yes. They operate entirely in the background, utilizing massive networks of trackers, cookies, and SDKs.
SDKs?
Software development kits. They're embedded in the apps you use every day.
Okay, so what exactly are they pulling out of my phone right now?
Well, they are meticulously tracking demographic data to put you in a bucket. Your age, your gender, your estimated income. But then it gets granular.
How granular?
They track your interests. And I don't mean they track that you clicked like on a sports team. They track how many milliseconds you lingered on an article about debt consolidation before scrolling past it.
Milliseconds.
Yes. They track what videos you watch to the end versus what you skip. They track your location, pinging your GPS coordinates dozens of times an hour to map your physical movements.
Wow.
Where you sleep, where you work, what doctors you visit. And they aggressively log your transaction history and shopping habits.
Okay, wait. I am going to play devil's advocate here and push back on this a little bit.
Go ahead.
So, a data broker collects my age. They know I like podcasts about obscure history. They know from my location data that I go to a specific local coffee shop every Tuesday morning.
Right.
And they know I buy a very specific weird brand of running shoes. They have this incredibly rich, detailed profile of me. But who actually cares?
You're asking what the harm is.
Yeah. Isn't targeted advertising actually a good thing? I mean, I would much rather see an ad for the running shoes I actually like than be spammed with ads for tractor parts or things I will never buy.
Mm.
What is the actual harm in them, knowing my shoe size and my coffee habits?
It is the most common defense of the industry, and it completely misses the scope of the threat.
Okay, correct me then.
If the only consequence of this massive surveillance apparatus was that you saw more relevant shoe ads, it really wouldn't be an issue. But the existence of the profile is merely the beginning of the monetization cycle. This data is not just used for retail advertising.
Where does it go then?
It is sold into a highly lucrative, entirely opaque secondary market. Yes, advertisers buy it, but massive corporations also buy it to power risk assessment algorithms.
Risk assessment, like what?
Health insurance companies buy aggregated data sets to determine if people in certain zip codes who buy certain types of food should face higher premiums.
Wait, seriously?
Absolutely. Financial institutions use alternative data derived from these profiles to make split-second decisions on lending and creditworthiness. Your online habits can literally dictate the interest rate you are offered on a mortgage.
Oh, wow. So it's not just about selling me things. It's about evaluating my risk as a human being.
Exactly.
And what about the shady buyers that always get mentioned in these discussions?
That is where the ecosystem becomes truly volatile, because this industry is vastly underregulated compared to the sheer volume and sensitivity of the data moving through it.
So anyone can buy it?
Essentially, yes. These profiles frequently end up in the hands of entities with zero ethical constraints. This data is purchased by political operatives who use psychological profiling to micro-target vulnerable demographics with highly specific, manipulative messaging.
Right.
It is purchased by foreign intelligence fronts, and most commonly, it ends up in poorly secured secondary databases that are eventually breached by malicious actors.
Hackers.
Hackers who funnel your entire behavioral history straight into dark web identity theft markets.
So my invisible trail, my coffee habits, my reading speed, my location history is being scooped up, packaged into a neat little digital box, and sold to the highest bidder in milliseconds.
Yes.
And I have absolutely zero control over who buys the box or what they do with it.
Exactly. The supply chain of your data is entirely opaque to you. The key takeaway for the listener here is that you have absolutely no idea where your digital footprint is wandering right now.
It's just out there.
It has a life of its own, traveling through corporate servers, risk assessment algorithms, and unregulated data marketplaces.
That is deeply, deeply unsettling. And it brings us to a fascinating piece of this hidden ecosystem that I think most people completely overlook when they think about the internet.
Which is?
Public records. The legal trail.
Ah, yes. This is the linchpin of the entire system.
The linchpin.
It is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the bridge between the digital, anonymous world and the physical, legal world.
Let's define this first. When we talk about public records, we were talking about court cases, property deeds, business registrations, marriage licenses, and voter registration information.
The paper trail of your life.
Right. And on the surface, this feels completely disconnected from, like, a data broker tracking my shoe purchases. This is bureaucratic government stuff. Why is this a critical part of my digital footprint?
To understand why this is critical, we have to look at the mechanics of data matching. Think about all the abstract, passive data we just discussed.
The anonymous browsing and location pings?
Exactly. For a long time, much of this data was probabilistic. A broker knew that device A went to a certain coffee shop and looked at certain websites.
But they didn't know who device A was.
Right. Device A is just a string of numbers. Public records act as the deterministic anchor.
Okay, how does that anchoring work exactly?
Well, because public records, your property deeds, your voter registration, are legally required to be public, and more importantly, they are now digitized and accessible via APIs.
Meaning computers can read them instantly.
Yes. And they contain your verified legal name, your exact physical address, and often your date of birth. So when a data broker sees that device A spends 8 hours every single night at a specific latitude and longitude coordinate,
They know that's where you sleep.
exactly, and they simply query the digitized public property records for that exact coordinate. The property record says that address is owned by you. Instantly, the anonymous device A is deterministically linked to your full legal name.
Oh my God.
The abstract data profile is now permanently anchored to your real-world identity.
Wow. So the digitization of bureaucracy has essentially weaponized public records.
It really has.
Because 20 years ago, if someone wanted to know who owned a house, they had to physically drive down to a county courthouse.
Fill out a paper request form.
Yeah, and wait for a clerk to pull a physical folder from a filing cabinet. The friction protected our privacy.
But now,
An algorithm can query 1 million property records in 3 seconds and cross-reference them with mobile location data.
precisely, the friction has been entirely eradicated. Public records form the solid bedrock upon which the rest of your behavioral digital footprint is constructed, verified, and ultimately monetized.
Okay, so we have laid out the entire anatomy of the trail. We have the active data, the searches, and the social media posts we willingly create.
Right.
And we have the passive data, the behavioral metrics extracted from us and anchored to our legal identities via public records. We've established that this massive, indestructible shadow exists.
It's there, following you.
But here is where it gets really interesting, and honestly where it gets dangerous. Because data just sitting on a server is abstract. What happens when that data is weaponized?
That's the real issue.
What happens when this invisible trail forcefully collides with your physical day-to-day life? We have to talk about the collateral damage and the real-life consequences.
This is the critical pivot from theory to application. We are looking at the tangible harm that an unmanaged digital footprint inflicts on individuals every single day.
Let's walk through a very grounded, incredibly common scenario from the source text. The job rejection scenario.
This happens constantly.
It is playing out in corporate HR departments around the globe as we speak. So imagine this. You are a candidate for a life-changing job. You have spent weeks preparing.
You're ready.
You go into the interview and you absolutely crush it. You navigate the technical questions perfectly. Your resume is impeccable. Your references are glowing. Your hard skills are exactly what the company needs.
By every traditional metric of employment, you are the perfect hire. You have played the professional game flawlessly up to the edge of the physical world.
Right. You walk out of the building feeling victorious. You're just waiting for the offer letter. But then human resources runs a background check.
And this isn't the old kind of background check.
No. We are no longer just talking about a standard criminal background check where they make sure you haven't robbed a bank. We are talking about a comprehensive digital footprint audit.
Exactly. There are entire third-party intelligence firms dedicated purely to scraping a candidate's digital history.
And during this automated scrape, they dig into the digital mud. And what do they find? Let's say they find a highly offensive, maybe racist meme you posted or shared back in 2018.
Or a string of deeply abusive, vitriolic comments you left on Twitter under a pseudonym.
Right. A pseudonym that they managed to link back to your email address anyway.
And in that instant, the entire paradigm of your employment potential shifts.
It's like, imagine showing up to this vital job interview. You're wearing a perfectly tailored suit. Your posture is excellent. You're projecting the ultimate aura of professionalism.
You look the part.
But the interviewers aren't looking at your suit or listening to your answers. They are staring at a glossy, high-definition photograph of you throwing a violent temper tantrum at a messy house party 5 years ago.
That is a brutally accurate analogy.
And they are judging your current ability to manage a team based entirely on that photograph. That is exactly what this digital audit feels like.
It strikes right at the heart of the issue because it highlights a fundamental shift in how society evaluates risk. When HR receives that digital audit report, the result is almost always the dreaded email. We regret to inform you.
Yep. The hard skills were strong, but the digital footprint ended the game entirely.
Your degree doesn't matter anymore. We have entered an era where hard skills, university degrees, and traditional professional competence are simply the baseline.
They just get you in the door.
Exactly. They are no longer enough to secure your livelihood. Your digital footprint operates as a shadow resume.
A shadow resume.
Yes. And a single toxic entry on that shadow resume, flagged by an AI sentiment analysis tool scanning your 10-year-old tweets, can instantly override a lifetime of professional achievement.
You aren't losing the job because you can't balance the spreadsheet.
No, you are losing the job because of an impulsive comment you typed on a Tuesday night half a decade ago.
It's devastating. And it doesn't just happen to the average mid-level manager trying to get a promotion. This phenomenon scales up to the highest levels of visibility in our culture.
Oh, absolutely.
This is the exact mechanism behind what we commonly refer to as cancel culture.
The old tweet controversy is the prime example of this mechanism operating at maximum scale and velocity.
The timeline of these events is what really stops you in your tracks. We routinely see careers shaken or completely destroyed in a single 24-hour news cycle.
Over tweets that are 8 to 10 years old.
Think about that for a second. Think about who you were 10 years ago. Think about your worldview, your maturity level, what you thought was acceptable humor 10 years ago.
It's a completely different person.
But people will actively, maliciously dig through thousands of old posts to surface insensitive jokes and problematic opinions from a decade past.
What is truly fascinating about this dynamic is the sheer asymmetry of the timeline.
Asymmetry. How do you mean?
Well, consider the physics of building a career, especially in the public eye. It takes decades of compounding effort. It requires networking, skill development, consistency, and thousands of small positive interactions.
It's a slow grind.
It is a slow, arduous process of construction. But the downfall is instantaneous. A decade-old text file, a tiny string of characters stored on a distributed database, has enough latent kinetic energy to dismantle a lifetime of career building in a single day.
It is essentially a digital landmine. But to landmine you planted yourself 10 years ago, you forgot exactly where you buried it, and then one day the cultural landscape shifts, you take a wrong step, and the whole thing detonates under your feet.
That is a perfect description. And the reason it detonates so violently is because the internet inherently lacks context.
Like, there's no nuance.
None. When an insensitive joke from 2014 is resurfaced and screenshotted in 2026, it is judged entirely by the cultural, social, and moral standards of 2026.
Which are very different.
Exactly. The context of the era it was posted in, the age and immaturity of the person who posted it, the personal evolution they may have undergone in the intervening 12 years, all of that vital human nuance is entirely stripped away. The footprint remains rigid, unyielding, and frozen in time, while society continuously moves forward. And when those two forces collide, the impact is catastrophic.
Okay, wow. So what does this all mean?
It means we need a plan.
We really do. We've looked at the active data we spill everywhere. We've looked at the passive data being harvested and traded in the shadows. And we've just outlined how this invisible trail can literally cost you your livelihood or destroy your reputation overnight.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. If you are listening to this right now, you are probably feeling a deep, sinking sense of panic. You are mentally calculating every dumb argument you've ever gotten into online.
Which is a natural reaction.
So we need to pivot from the problem to the solution. Now that we are thoroughly terrified of the mud, how do we clean it up?
Let's get into it.
We have compiled a highly practical, 6-step cleanup operation based on our sources. A comprehensive digital detox. Let's walk through this step by step, because taking action is the only way to regain control.
This is the most critical part of our discussion today. The situation is severe, the architecture is stacked against you, but it is not entirely hopeless.
Right.
You can exert agency over your digital footprint. It just requires sustained effort.
Step 1 is the self-audit. Before you can clean the house, you have to turn on the harsh fluorescent lights and see exactly how dirty it is.
You have to Google yourself.
You have to Google yourself.
Yeah.
But you can't just type in your first name and call it a day. You have to use advanced search techniques. You need to search your full legal name in quotation marks.
Yes.
You need to search every common username you have used since you were a teenager. You need to search your current and old email addresses. The goal here is to see exactly what the world or an HR algorithm is seeing.
And we should warn you, this requires a significant degree of psychological fortitude.
It's not fun.
Googling yourself comprehensively is an incredibly uncomfortable experience. It is like looking into a funhouse mirror that reflects not just your current face, but every awkward phase you've gone through over the past 20 years.
Oh, totally. When you search that old email address, you are going to find it associated with forum accounts from 2006 that you haven't thought about in 2 decades.
But you're looking for the perimeter of your footprint. You cannot clean what you cannot map.
I can easily imagine people doing this audit and just physically cringing at what pops up on page 3 or 4 of the search results. So once you have done the audit and you see the horror show laid out before you, you move to steps 2 and 3, scrubbing the past.
This focuses squarely on your posts and your social media presence.
The instructions here are brutal but necessary. Delete the cringe, remove the controversial, and lock down your privacy settings. You must conduct a full, ruthless audit of every platform you touch.
Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, LinkedIn, all of it.
All of it.
The operative directive here is simple. If it is unnecessary, delete it. If you must keep it for sentimental reasons, make it strictly private.
You're cleaning house.
This is a process of aggressive curation. You are transitioning from being a passive accumulator of digital hoarding to an active, defensive editor of your own history.
You essentially have to become your own PR manager.
Exactly. You have to approach your own social media history with the critical, unforgiving eye of a hostile public or a corporate risk assessor.
So that heated argument you got into in the comments section of a local news article about zoning laws 5 years ago?
Delete it.
The inside joke with your friends that sounds incredibly offensive to an outsider devoid of context?
Delete it.
And tightening your privacy settings is equally crucial.
Extremely crucial. Not every thought you have needs to be indexed by global search engines. By setting your historical data to private, you sever the link between the open, searchable internet and your personal archives.
You are basically shutting the heavy wooden door to the public square. So that handles the active data, the stuff we actually control. But what about steps 4 and 5?
This is where we tackle the passive data.
The hidden ecosystem. We need to cut off the corporate feed. Let's talk about those data brokers again. The directive is to opt out of people search websites and marketing databases. Now, I have looked into this, and I know for a fact this is not a one-click solution.
No, it is not.
This involves a massive amount of manual, tedious effort.
It is intensely tedious, and that tedium is not an accident. It is a design feature.
They make it hard on purpose.
Data brokers utilize what we call dark patterns in user interface design. They do not want you to opt out because you are their inventory.
Right.
The harder and more confusing they make the opt-out process, the more people will simply give up out of frustration, and the more robust their databases remain.
So what does that actually look like for the user trying to scrub their data? Like practically?
It means you cannot just send one email. You will have to go to dozens, sometimes hundreds, of individual broker websites.
Hundreds.
Yes. You will have to scroll past the massive buy a background check buttons to find the microscopic do not sell my personal information link buried in the footer.
Of course it's microscopic.
You will have to fill out complex web forms. You will often have to confirm your identity via email verification loops, and then you have to wait weeks for the processing to actually occur.
Wow.
And even then, you have to check back periodically, because sometimes if you generate a new piece of data, they will simply create a fresh profile for you.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare of a weekend project.
It is exhausting, but it is fundamentally worth it. Reclaiming your data from these brokers is one of the most impactful, high-leverage things you can do to reduce your digital exposure.
It stops the bleeding.
It stops the bleeding. It removes your profile from the easy, automated reach of anyone willing to pay $39.99 to find out where you live and what you read.
Okay, so you brew a pot of coffee, you fight through the dark patterns, and you opt out of the data brokers. Step 5 moves to Google activity controls and major tech platforms.
The big guys.
We know Google tracks everything. The directive here is to dive into your account settings and physically flip the technical toggles. We need to pause or delete our search history, turn off location tracking, and severely limit ad personalization.
These are the actual valves that control the flow of data from your physical devices to the corporate server farms.
By flipping them, we cut the feed.
By going into your settings and pausing your search and app history, you are instructing the system at the account level to stop maintaining that chronological ledger of your thoughts.
And turning off location tracking.
By doing that, you are severing the geographical anchor we discussed earlier. You are reclaiming a massive portion of your physical anonymity.
I love that. Reclaiming physical anonymity.
And by limiting ad personalization, you are disrupting the algorithmic profiling that attempts to predict your behavior. You are essentially putting blinders on the surveillance apparatus.
You are starving the beast of the data it needs to model you. Okay, so we have audited the damage, we have scrubbed our past posts, we have fought the data brokers, and we have choked off the corporate data feed.
Which brings us to the final step.
Step 6 in our digital detox, building strong privacy habits. This isn't about cleaning the past, it's about protecting the future. It's preventative maintenance.
Very important.
The general rules are common sense. Do not grant access to unknown apps, use multi-factor authentication, and avoid oversharing. But I really want to zero in on a very specific, fascinating warning from the text.
I know exactly which one you mean.
It explicitly says to avoid random internet quizzes. You know, the which 90s sitcom character are you, or what does your aura color mean? quizzes.
Ah, yes. The seemingly innocuous viral internet quiz is a masterpiece of social engineering.
Right, because on the surface, these seem entirely harmless. You are bored on a Tuesday afternoon, a friend posts the results saying they're a Monica, and you think, yeah, I want to know if I'm a Chandler or a Joey.
It's just a fun 10-second distraction.
Exactly. So why is this highlighted as a major critical privacy threat?
To understand the threat, we have to break down exactly why these quizzes exist in the first place and how they function technically.
Okay.
These quizzes are not created by benevolent web developers who simply want to entertain you on your lunch break. They are highly sophisticated, weaponized data harvesting tools masquerading as low-tier entertainment.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanism. How does a quiz about sitcom characters harvest my data?
Consider the transaction sequence. To take the quiz or to see your results, you usually encounter a friction point. A screen pops up that says, log in with Facebook or allow application access to profile.
Oh yeah, I've seen that a million times. I usually just click allow.
Exactly. And when you click allow, you aren't just bypassing a login screen, you are engaging in an OAuth protocol exchange.
Oh, what?
You are granting the creator of that quiz an API token, a literal digital skeleton key, to access the back-end data of your social media profile.
Okay, so what exactly does that key unlock?
That's the terrifying part, because nobody reads the permissions scope. They aren't just getting your answers to the 5 silly questions about your favorite pizza topping.
What are they getting?
Depending on the permissions you just blindly accepted, they are extracting your full public profile, your exact date of birth, your location data, your email address, your photo library.
Wait, my photos?
Yes, and crucially, your social graph.
What's a social graph?
Meaning your entire list of friends and connections.
Wait, so just to find out I have the personality of a golden retriever, I am handing a random unknown third-party developer the keys to my entire network of friends.
Exactly. And why do they want that? It feeds directly back into segment 2, data brokers.
It always goes back to them.
The entity that created the quiz scoops up all that rich, verified, interconnected demographic data from you and the millions of other bored people who took the quiz. They package that massive data set and they sell it.
Unbelievable.
The absolute genius of the viral quiz is that it bypasses the need for stealth or complex hacking. It is designed to willingly extract your personal information by trading it for a momentary narcissistic dopamine hit.
You are literally opening the vault door and handing them the gold.
That is why building the habit of recognizing these traps and walking away is so critical.
That is mind-blowing. The quiz is the bait, the API token is the hook, and your data is the fish.
Wow.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We have traced the invisible trail from a simple late-night Google search all the way to a devastating job rejection. And we have mapped out the grueling, manual, but absolutely necessary steps to clean the digital mud.
It's a journey.
It is time to bring this all together. As we look at everything we've uncovered, there is a golden rule that governs this entire landscape. It is the phrase we have circled around for the last hour. The internet never forgets.
It is the foundational axiom of the digital age. It is the immutable law of network architecture.
And the implication of that law is profound. What seems like an edgy joke today becomes a massive liability tomorrow. What feels entirely private in the glow of your screen tonight can easily become a public spectacle next year.
And this synthesizes everything we have discussed perfectly. I want you to think about the sheer amount of time, energy, anxiety, and money you spend managing your real-life physical image.
Yeah, we spend a lot on that.
You buy nice clothes, you get haircuts, you practice your posture, you monitor your tone of voice in professional settings, you learn how to shake hands.
Right.
You do all of this instinctively because you understand that your physical presentation dictates how the world perceives you, trusts you, and treats you.
Right. You wouldn't walk into a bank to ask for a small business loan wearing muddy sweatpants, smelling like a brewery, and screaming obscenities at the top of your lungs. You groom yourself for the environment.
Exactly. But the reality of the modern world is that you must apply that exact same level of rigorous management, that exact same meticulous grooming to your online image.
Why is that?
Because the temporal mechanics of human trust have fundamentally inverted.
Inverted?
Yes. In the past, you met someone physically, you built trust through face-to-face interaction over time, and maybe eventually you learned about their background or their past mistakes.
Yeah, that's how it used to work.
Today, the sequence is completely reversed. People Google you first, and they decide whether or not to trust you later.
People Google you first. and trust you later. That is the stark reality we live in. Your digital footprint arrives in the interview room before you do.
Long before.
It introduces you to a potential partner before you even have a chance to say hello. It is your permanent, invisible, heavily scrutinized shadow.
It is. And actively managing that shadow is no longer a niche technical skill for privacy advocates. It is a core, mandatory requirement for navigating modern society safely and successfully.
Which leaves us with a massive question. A final thought for you, the listener, to mull over as you go about the rest of your day. Perhaps as you look down at your phone right now to post a quick thought or take a fun quiz.
Think carefully.
We have established, technically and culturally, that the internet truly never forgets. It perfectly, flawlessly preserves our worst jokes, our angriest moments, and our most unrefined opinions from a decade ago.
It freezes us in amber.
Exactly. So if the technology is never going to change, if the server memory is going to remain perfect and infinite forever, will society eventually be forced to change how it judges our digital footprints?
That's the real question.
Will we as a culture have to develop a social statute of limitations for digital cringe, recognizing that people actually grow and change? Or are we destined to forever be held hostage by the person we used to be 10 years ago, judged eternally by the worst thing we ever typed? Think about that before your next click. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.